is the topic of the day. As always, I'm not giving legal advice. This is just for informational purposes. And I'm also not giving you guys investment advice. But I am both an attorney and a licensed funeral broker. And I do these live sessions to kind of educate you about topics, issues, and things to then ask your individual immigration attorney and the FINRA licensed broker that you choose to work with, because every case is specific. So I'm giving you general information, and that's going to bring up questions you should discuss with your individual professionals to see if they apply to you. But so the topic today is EB-5 for international students. So EB-5 has become more and more popular as a solution for international students who have graduated from university here and who are looking for ways to stay in the United States. So it actually, even traditionally, even before there were specific conversations or articles kind of explaining that EB-5 is a great possible solution for international students who want to stay in the US, I've seen a pattern that a huge number of EB-5 applicants, I would guess, this is a total guess, but I would guess close to 30% in earlier years were parents who were petitioning for their children who were either studying in the United States or who wanted to study in the United States or who recently graduated and realized that the H-1B route was not helping them. So it's always been a very big part of the overall pool of EB-5 investors. But I recently wanted to start to become more vocal about it because I've noticed that most international students don't know about this option, right? So if their parents learn about it through, bankers or lawyers, that's how they usually come to use it. But international students should know this, research this, and bring this up proactively to their parents as part of their strategy of staying in the United States. So, what is so specific about EB-5 for international students? So, the EB-5 investor visa allows a foreign national to obtain permanent residency, so green card in the United States, when that person invests at least 800,000 into a project that creates at least ten jobs. So today it's June 2026. The minimum investment is 800,000. That is expected to go up a little bit next year in 2027. The key to this program, anyone can apply. So anyone from any country can apply. Anyone with any background can apply. The two requirements are investment and job creation, right? Through that investment. So because it does not impose additional requirements such as the funds do not have to be earned by the investor, they can be gifted to the investor. So if the parents earn the funds gifted to the child can invest in self-petition. You don't need a work sponsor. You don't need experience. You don't even need to speak English. That's not one of the requirements for this. So there are two main requirements. You have to invest the minimum investment amount of lawful funds, and that investment has to generate 10 jobs in the US economy. That's it. That's the basis. And as a result, EB-5 is a very open program and it is a great solution for a lot of individuals, obviously assuming that they have this investment amount. But in terms of personal qualifications, it's very, very open, right? Anyone with no work experience or a ton of work experience, with great language skills or very little language skills, can apply for this program, and also from any country. And it is permanent residency. So when do I see EB-5 being most useful to international students? Frankly, the earlier the better. I have families who learn about this program while their child is still considering going to a university in the United States. And at that point, they can apply early. And there are a few benefits to that. So EB-5 covers the investor, gives the green card to the investor and family members, so a spouse of an investor and any children under 21 years old. So when I have a student who comes to me and they're 22 years old, they're about to graduate, they realize that OPT is only going to work for a year or 3 years, and then after that, it's a total game of luck if they can even get an H-1B visa. The latest statistics is about maybe 1 in 5 can get an H-1B visa, 1 out of 5 applicants. So it's a lottery. And so EB-5 does cover the whole family member. So if I have a student who comes to me and says, I'm 22 years old, can EB-5 be a solution for me? Absolutely, but that means the parents would donate the funds to that investor, and that investor would get one green card for himself or herself. If the same student came to me a couple years earlier, when before they turned 21, if they came to me, say, when they were 18, when they're just enrolling in the university, and they said, hey, I want to go to university in the US and I don't want to stay there after, can we utilize EB-5? Then my response would be yes. On top of that, if one of your parents applies, so if it's your mother, for example, and if you have other siblings, you have a brother and sister who are also under 21, if your mother applies, she becomes the investor, and then all of the siblings get the green card. So the earlier, that's what I'm saying, EB-5 is a great solution. So if you're over 21, you can utilize it for yourself. If the parents donate the funds or you have your own independent funds you can invest, you can utilize it for yourself. When a student is under the age of 21, one of the parents can be the investor, and that way the whole family can get green cards. So timing is important. I do see that a lot of individuals tend to look into EB-5 a little bit late. When they're studying in school, they're not thinking that far ahead into the future yet. They're really busy like taking exams, making sure they actually get accepted to one of the top universities. And then they arrive in the United States, start studying here. After a couple of years, they realize they really like it here. Then they realize they want to stay. They start researching their options. And by the time they realize that staying in the United States after you graduate from a university here is not easy, and certainly is not automatic, but even if you graduate, even if you have an employer willing to sponsor you for a green card, and even if they go ahead and proceed with that application, you have maybe only a 1 in 5 chance that you're going to be selected for a work visa. So all of this information comes to international students usually when they're already here in the United States studying. And that's when they start realizing, like looking for other options. And that's when EB-5 becomes something that they research, which again, at that point, if they already turned 21, we can use it for them, but we cannot use it to include the entire family. So sometimes I do have parents, like right now, I'm working with a family where we have a father making four donations because he wants all 4 of his kids to be able to get a green card in the US. So now he's investing, you know, $3.5 million between all 4 of them. And if they did this application before the children turned 21, he would only have one investment going from his name, and then all the children would be covered. So important as international students, the earlier the better you look into it because potentially you can file on behalf of your entire family and the whole family, your parents and your siblings can get a green card. But again, if this is something, if you're already here, already studying, and you're over 21, this can be a great solution for you. So, how does it work practically? So, there are a few benefits to the B5 program. When you uh, to do the actual investment and the source of funds documentation, that process takes about 1 to 3 months. So we look at different project options. At the same time, your immigration attorney will work with you on the source of funds documentation. And then once we pick a project, they finalize the documents. You can invest in the project, so wire to the project, and file your I-526E petition with the government. Now, what's nice about the I-526E petition is it is eligible for so-called concurrent filing. Before 2022, we had to file the initial petition, wait for it to get approved, and only after it was approved, you were allowed to either do an adjustment of status, so change your status from a student to a green card holder in the United States, or you would want to do consular processing. That's when you apply abroad through a US consulate for an immigrant visa. Now, Prior to 2022, this had to be done. You had to file the I-56, wait for the approval, and only after the approval, you were eligible to adjust or do consular processing. Um, Now, post 2022, we received the benefit that now EB-5 is eligible for so-called concurrent adjustment. That means once you file your I-526, while that application is pending, you can concurrently file the adjustment of status, so a request to change your status from a non-immigrant lawful status to a green card holder. And filing the adjustment of status grants you lawful presence in the United States. So it's not considered an active independent status, but it is lawful presence while your I-526E petition is pending. And it does make you eligible to apply for work and travel authorization, which is very cool. So I do see a lot of international students who are still studying, finishing their last years, or who are already on OPT. They filed the EB-5 concurrent adjustment, received the work and travel documents that they can start utilizing to work and to travel while they wait for the I-526E application to be approved. And then after that, subsequently for their green card, the adjustment of status to be approved. So the actual green card could take a couple of years, right? 2024 and 2025 were very good, fast years. For some investors, we've seen approvals of their petition in about 6 months and of their green card in about 12 months. But I do anticipate that in 2026, 27, and 28 are going to be slower, right? We're under a different administration, and this administration tends to do things at a slower pace. So I would anticipate if you're filing for an EB-5 green card today, that probably the green card would be arriving in a year and a half to 3 years, just depending on which project you select and which process. But during that time, you are eligible for the concurrent adjustment, so you could be receiving your work and travel authorization within just a few months post filing. So those are kind of some of the main reasons and some of the important things to keep in mind as a student. Number one, EB-5 does allow you fully independent self-petition. You make your own investment, you make your own petition. No one has to sponsor you. There's no employer or you're a citizen that has to sponsor you or vouch for that visa. This is something you earn. And this is what I love about the EB-5 program. It allows you to earn your way to US permanent residency by doing something that's good for the country in form of your investment that creates 10 jobs and by self-petitioning. So you self-petition, no requirements as to background, work experience. So you could be still in college or straight out of college. No additional skill set requirements other than the lawful investment. And so it's very flexible and it is open for application for all countries. So that is definitely something that's great. Now, an important question that a lot of students will ask me is, do I have to manage my own business? What kind of investments are these? So the good thing about the EB-5 program is there's a subset of that program, which is the EB-5 Regional Center program, and that allows you to invest in large American companies, right? So you don't have to be running a mom and pop shop. You can pick out of many projects. So there could be construction of a hotel, hospital, infrastructure projects, operating businesses, and there is a whole industry of EB-5 projects now. I, as a broker, that's my job, is I help investors navigate this industry, look at different EB-5 investments that come through. We do our own due diligence on them. Then I help investors select a suitable option for them. But from your perspective as a student, you continue to study. You don't have to be managing a business. You don't have to be running the daily operations. You select out of one of these projects, make an investment, and then all the work is done by the company you invest. And they send you regular reports, and they also send reports, especially pertaining to the job creation, directly to USCIS. So that's what's nice about this program is it pairs up a more passive investment with active American companies that can utilize those funds to expand their operation in the United States. So, specifically for students, I think most immigration attorneys today will recommend to maintain your active non-immigrant status, even if you filed for AB-5 and filed an adjustment, just because that whole kind of adjustment and work authorization, those things are always discretionary. So we do recommend continuing and maintaining your student status if you can. Um, but that concurrent adjustment does give you a lawful stay and does give you a work and travel authorization that's separate and independent from your OPT authorization. Some other things, so do students kind of ask me like if I can use gifts. Does it have to be from a family member? It does not. The gift can come from a family friend. There's no requirement that this person has to have a bloodline relation to you. Does the money have to come from abroad? No. Also, you can have a US person make the donation to you or, issue a loan to you. That is also possible. Um, can you use loaned funds? You can. So you can take a loan, could be unsecured loan from friends or family. You still have to source that these funds were earned lawfully. You could take a loan, whether it's secured or unsecured, but keep in mind there's also a separate requirement. This has nothing to do with the immigration law, but most EB-5 projects are structured under specific rules, investment rules. And most of these projects fall under the types of rules where they're only allowed to accept what's called an accredited investor. An accredited investor is someone whose net earnings are over 200,000 per year or whose net worth is over $1 million. So a student who receives a gift of $1 million from their parents and utilizes, 800,000 towards their EB-5, the entire sum of the gift is counted towards the student's net worth, which makes them accredited. And that means they can select any project that can only work with accredited investors. However, if a student is receiving a loan, so you're borrowing money from the parents or the uncle, aunt, friends, those are not considered, so those are not gifted funds to you. That's a loan that doesn't count towards your net worth. So if you don't have an independent net worth of over 1 million, and since you're a student, probably not making an income yet, there could be a challenge if you cannot meet the accredited investor requirement. Your selection of projects might be much more limited. So those are things to keep in mind, and this is why, I mean, most international students receive a gift from their parents and not a loan, but those are things to consider. And then, of course, the parents or the giftor have to show that the funds were earned lawfully. So again, as far as international students are concerned, you can do this while you're studying. You can do this even before you start studying in the United States. So you can petition anytime. Again, just check in with your immigration attorney on the appropriate time specific to your case. But some parents choose to start the process before their child enrolls in American universities. So they get the green card. By the time they get the green card, so by the time the child goes to university, they're already going as a green card holder. And depending on which state they reside in, they may be eligible for in-state tuition, which obviously could be huge savings. So this can be done before you start university, while you're studying at university, after you have finished, and maybe you're here on OPT or another visa type. Even if you already departed and you're looking to come back, I'm working with a few investors like that who finished university, their OPT ran out, could not either secure an H-1B or got the H-1B, then they were laid off, or they just couldn't secure the H-1B lottery and had to depart, and now they're coming back, and they're coming back this time through EB-5 process. So it can be started at any given time. Just if you are here in the United States, you are eligible your set of facts has to be checked by your immigration attorneys, but most of the time you are eligible for what's called a concurrent adjustment, so that lawful stay while your petition is pending, and work and travel authorization. If you're doing the process from outside of the United States, then you first apply, wait for the petition to be approved, and then you do consular processing, get your immigrant visa, and then enter the US now as a green card holder. So, again, for international students, this can be started at any time. You can self-petition. So the requirement is lawful funds, the investment into a project that will create 10 jobs. You are eligible for a work and travel authorization if you're here in the United States. Also, EB-5 is eligible for a 245K protection. So if inadvertently you fell out of status, and I have seen this happen where a student thought that their I-20 was extended because they re-enrolled in classes, but due to either miscommunication or an error, the university did not extend the I-20, and they were actually here in the United States, but not in an active status anymore. The EB-5 petition does offer what's called a 245K protection. So if you have accumulated less than 180 days of unlawful presence, you can, and if you file for EB-5 and a concurrent adjustment, that 180 days is essentially forgiven. It is discretionary, but it is there in the law, and that is something that's available. And I have seen, students already utilize this too, again, when they realized after they fell out of active status that the I-20 was not extended. So they would either have to depart or start accumulating unlawful presence. And they were able to make this EB-5 investment, file the adjustment, and avail themselves of this 245K protection so they can stay and adjust and become a green card holder while following the rules and the requirements. So those are definitely options. As far as projects are concerned, as I mentioned, there's a whole industry now of projects catering to EB-5 investors specifically. Now I want to be very mindful. The quality of those projects varies greatly. So lots of research and due diligence should be done. I do recommend to use licensed professionals such as FINRA registered broker dealers. That is what I do now, and there's a few of us in the United States where we research these projects. We're FINRA regulated, so we apply FINRA standards when we do due diligence on these projects, and then we help clients navigate and understand the pros and the cons of different deals, and obviously filter out also deals that are not well structured and carry um, additional risks. So we like to filter those out and focus on the options that offer more protections and are more, have more feasibility and the likelihood of success. So lots of projects to choose from. Now, important things. This program, the EB-5 Regional Center program, is not permanent. It does expire. It gets renewed every few years. So it's been in existence since 1992. Every few years, Congress has to renew it or it can disappear. The last renewal was in 2022. The next one is supposed to happen in September 2027 because that's when the program sunsets, September 30th, 2027. But September 30th, 2026 is an important deadline. If you can file your petition by September 30th, 2026, you are eligible for what's called grandfathering protection. So that means you're grandfathered in and protected from any future legislative changes. So say you file your petition in September of 2026, and the following year when the program sunsets, Congress doesn't renew it, or there's a lapse in the program and they don't renew it for a period of time, which has happened twice in the history of EB-5. You, as an investor who filed by September 30th, 2026, are grandfathered in and protected. Your immigration process continues as normal, right? So whether the Congress renews the program or does not renew the program the following year, those investors who filed by September 30th, 2026 are grandfathered in. So that's first important deadline. Um, the next important deadline is that January 1st, 2027, the investment amount is supposed to be recalculated for inflation. So we do anticipate that the investment amount is going to go up to 900 or maybe 950,000 from the minimum 800,000 that it is at today. Um, it's a decent change. Maybe it's not the most debilitating change in the investment amount, but it is a decent change. So those investors who can file before January 1st, 2027 would still be eligible for the current minimum investment amount. And then, of course, September 30th, 2027, after which the program sunsets. Um, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but if we look at the history of EB-5, there are renewals, and I, as someone who's involved in lobbying for this program and conversations on the Hill, I'm very optimistic on this renewal. I think we've done a great job. Last time in 2022, there were some very major changes that created a lot more regulation for EB-5, a lot more financial accountability and transparency. I think those were very positive changes that were implemented. And as a result, we do see that this program is working better. And yeah, we hope to see a swift, clean renewal in September of 2027. But if you guys have any questions, please send them to me. If you have any comments, leave comments on the video. If you have suggestions for topics, live topics for the future, please also let me know. But if you need our services, you can always reach out to info@eb5support.com. And I look forward to doing more of these live sessions. And hopefully today's session was useful to international students. Thanks. Bye.